Agreed. You thought of that. What, mortal? That was my plan.
选一点能刷的，我是看出来了。
You thought of that. What is it now? That was my plan.
我来看一下对面中单是谁啊？中单好像是炼金术士。
Agreed. Very well. I must hunt soon. What is it now?
那谁啊？屠夫吗？
What, mortal? What is it now? I must hunt soon. What is it now? I must hunt soon. That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. Very well. Agreed. Very well. You thought of that? Greetings. Very well. That was my plan.
Welcome to our home.
Agreed. That was my plan. What is it now? Greetings.
操，不是屠夫，我特地买了个护腕，我怕被勾了还能跟他打一打，
Plan.
难受。
Very well.
还不是速平呢。
You thought of that? That was my plan. You thought of that? Death rages. What is it now? I hunger. That was my plan. Death rages. You thought of that? Agreed. I hunger. Very well. You thought of that? Very well. I hunger. Agreed. Very well. That was my plan. That was my plan. What, mortal? You thought of that? Very well. Death rages. Agreed. Greetings. Very well. That was my plan. You thought of that? Very well. You thought of that? Agreed. Very well. Agreed. Die. You thought of that? Death rages. Very well. You thought of that? That was my plan. Very well. That was my plan. You thought of that? Agreed. You thought of that? That was my plan. Death rages. What is it now? Must hunt soon. Agreed. That was my plan. I hunger. What mortal? Rages. Very well. Agreed.
First blood.
I hunger. That was my plan. You thought of that? That was my plan. Very well. What is it now?
Our allied town is under siege.
That was my plan. Death rages. I must hunt soon. Very well. Your soul is mine. Agreed. I hunger. Very well. Death
Our allied town is under siege.
That was my plan. That was my plan. Agreed. What more? Forward. What is it now? That was my plan. What more? Make your choice. Very well. Agreed. That was my plan. Very well. Death rages. Agreed. Very well. You thought of that? What is it now? Agreed. Very well. Die. I hunger. You thought of that? Very well. You thought of that. I must hunt soon. What, mortal? Agreed. That was my plan. Die. Death rages. You thought of that? That was my plan. You thought of that? Greetings. That was my plan. Agreed. That was my plan. Agreed. You thought of that? Agreed. Die. Very well. You thought of that? Agreed. I must hunt. What is it now? You thought of that? Very well. Greetings. I will eat. You thought of that? Very well. Agreed. Very well. You thought of that? Your soul is mine. Very well. Agreed. That was my plan. Gracious. Agreed. I hunger. Religious. You thought of that? Very well. You thought of that? That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. That was my plan.
Our allied town is under siege.
I hunger. Agreed. That was my plan. You thought of that? What, mortal? Very well. You thought of that? Death rages. What is it now? What, mortal?
Our allied town is under siege.
Oh!
You thought of that?
Our allied town is under siege.
这胖子不买鞋啊？他以为有鞋，我上去好帮他刷炼金，找个角度。
What is it now? Greetings. You thought of that? Very well. That was my plan. Very well. That was my plan. Your soul.
小憨憨。
plan. Die.
Insufficient.
What is it now? Death rages. Die. Bleeding.
What is it?
What? Must hunger soon. I hunger. Very well. That was my plan. Death rages. Very well. Agreed.
Our
That was my
allied town
plan.
is under siege.
What, mortal? What is it now? I hunger. I wait. I must hunt soon. Very well. That was my plan. What is it now? You thought of that? Agreed. You thought of that? That was my plan. Agreed. That was my plan. Very well. That was my plan. Agreed. That was my plan. Fresh meat. Die. Very well. Double kill. That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. You thought of that? Very well. That was my plan. Greetings. You thought of that? I must hunt soon. What is it now? Very well. You thought of that? Death rages. I hunger. That was my plan. Greetings. You thought of that? What is it now? I must hunt soon. Agreed. Greetings. That was my plan.
哎，屌，双击了个跳，没事。
Agreed. You thought of that. Agreed. You thought of that. What is it now? That was my plan. Agreed. Die.
What is it?
Greetings.
Our allied town is under siege.
What? I must hunt soon. Very well. Agreed. You thought of that. What? Mortal. Very well. Greetings. That was my
Our
plan.
allied town forces are under attack.
Agreed. What? Very well.
我操！
Death rages. That was my plan. What is it now? You thought of that? Agreed. That was my plan. Very well. You thought of that? Very well. Greetings. That was my plan. You thought of that? What, mortal? Yes, I must hunt soon. Very well.
Forward.
Greetings. What, mortal?
Yes, my lord.
Hello.
What is that? Very well. I must hunt soon. You thought of that? Greetings. That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. That was my plan. Very well. You thought of that?
Greetings, my lord.
Yes, ma'am.
Insufficient gold.
I wait.
Our allied town is under siege.
Hello.
thought of that. That was my plan. Agreed. Very well. What is it now? You thought of that? Very well. I must hunt soon. Greetings. That was my plan. You thought of that? Agreed. You thought of that? Very well. Fresh meat. Agreed. I hunger. That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. That was my plan. What is it now? Agreed. Greetings. Must hunt soon. What is it now? My must hunt soon. Very well.
Our allied town is under siege.
What is it now? That was my plan. Very well. What more? Greetings. What is it now? I hunger. Please. What more? I await. What is it now? Very well. You thought of that? Very well.
啊，
Your soul is mine.
好人马，
Death rages.
帮我省大是吧？我操，这人马，
Very well. I hunger. Right, what is it now? You thought of that? That was my plan. That was my plan. I hunger.
Not enough.
That was my plan. Greetings. Very well. Agreed.
Hello.
What? Thought of that? Very well. I must hunt soon. You thought of that? Very well. Agreed. You thought of that? Very well. Death rages. Agreed. That was my plan. Agreed. You thought of that? Agreed. Very well. What, mortal? That was my plan. Very well. That was my plan. Very well. That was my plan. I await. You thought of that? Very well. Your soul is mine. Dominating. That was my plan. Very well. That was my plan. Killing spree. That was my plan. Agreed.
Our allies' town is under siege.
Agreed. That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. What, mortal? You thought of that? Very well. That was my plan.
Our allies' town is under siege.
Very well. Agreed. What?
Welcome to the village.
That was my plan. Agreed. That was my plan. Greetings. You thought of that? I must hunt soon. What is it now? I must hunt soon. What, mortal? Greetings. I must hunt soon. I must hunt. What, mortal? What is it now? I must hunt soon. What is it now? That was my plan. Very well. That was my plan. What, mortal? Man must hunt soon. That was my plan. Unstoppable double kill. That was my plan. Agreed. I must hunt soon. What is it now? You thought of that?
Our allies' town is under siege.
You thought of that? I must hunt soon. You thought of that? Greetings. Death rages. What, mortal? Very well. What is it now? Agreed. That was my plan. Agreed. What? I hunger. Wicked sick. Agreed. You thought of that. Very well. Agreed. Very well. You thought of that. Very well. You thought of that. Agreed. You thought of that. Agreed. I must hunt soon. Very well. What, mortal? That was my
I bow to you.
What is it now?
I am ready.
Very well. You thought of that. Very well. That was my plan. Death rages. Very well. I hunger. I must hunt soon. Death rages. That was my plan. Very
Our
well.
allies' town is under
What?
siege.
You thought of that.
Monster kill!
Agreed.
Greetings, my lord. Hello.
What, mortal? That was my plan. I must hunt.
Our allies' town is under siege.
What is it now? Greetings. I must hunt soon. Agreed. What is it now? You thought of that. Agreed. Very well. That was my plan. Agreed. You thought of that. Agreed. That
Our
was my
allies' town
plan.
is under siege.
I must hunt soon. Very well. You thought of that?
Welcome to our village.
Greetings. Very well. You thought of that? That was my plan. Agreed. Very well. That was my plan. You thought of that? That was my plan. Agreed. Very well. Agreed. You thought of that? Agreed. What is it now? What, mortal? You thought of
这边5个啊，
very well. Agreed.
变成一个像，可能他闪了一下红点，他可能在我们这边也去打野了。啊，他也跳的了。
Very well. Agreed. Greetings. What is it now? What, mortal? You thought of that? Agreed. You thought of that? Your soul is mine.
Our forces are under attack.
Godlike!
Plan. Very
allied town is under siege.
What is it? Very well. That was my plan.
Dominating.
Very well. That was my plan. You thought of that? Agreed. That was my plan. You thought of that?
Our allies' town is under siege.
Greetings. That was my plan. Agreed. Your soul is mine. Very well. I hunger. Agreed. That was my plan. You thought of that? Fresh meat. Your soul is mine. Die. That was my plan. You thought of that? That was my plan. Agreed. That was my plan. Agreed. That was my plan. Agreed. That was my plan.
Holy shit.
Agreed. Very well. Your soul is mine. Death rages. You thought of that? Agreed. Very well. You thought of that? I hunger. Your soul is mine. Very well. That was my plan. Very well. Death rages. That was my plan. You thought of that? Very well.
操，被推上去了，还行，把他也杀了。
Unstoppable double kill.
打完这把去健身，然后有一个小姐她约了我很久，我决定给她一个面子，你老拒绝别人也不好。我感觉兄弟们，我客观讲一下啊，这个16选拔第一天，我个人觉得它这个天梯含金量可能比前2年高了特别多，并不是说这个是咱平台咱就是吹这个牛逼，这个确实是，如果说大家都在看的话，应该能感受得出来。
That was my plan. Agreed. Death rages. You thought of that? What is it now? That was my plan. You thought of that? That was my plan. You thought of that? Very well. That was my plan. What, mortal? Very well. That was my plan. Very well. I hunger. That was my plan. Death rages.
Double kill.
I hunger. That was my plan. You thought of that? That was my
Wicked sick.
You thought of that? Very well. That was my plan. Very well. Agreed. Die. Very well. That was my plan. Agreed. What is it now? That was my plan.
这个对面这个电竞他其实玩的很不错的。
I hunger. Agreed. That was my plan. You thought of that. That was my plan. I hunger. What? Must hunt soon. Death rages. That was the plan. Your soul is mine. Greetings.
吹风点快了，点到我自己身上了，本来想吹他的。
What? Agreed. That was my plan. You thought of that.
Killing spree.
Agreed. You thought of that. Very well. Agreed. You thought of that. Your soul is mine. That was my plan. I hunger. Die. Death rages. Die. Death rages. I hunger. Very well. Greetings. Agreed. You find that. Must hunt soon. Agreed. Very well. Die. I hunger. Agreed. You thought of that. Greetings. Must hunt soon. What is it now? Agreed. That was my plan. Agreed. Must hunt soon. Greetings. What mortal? Greetings. I must hunt soon. You thought of that. That was my plan. That was my plan. Agreed. I must hunt soon. Death rages. What mortal? Greetings. That was my plan. I dominate. Rages. I hunger. Rages. I hunger. Rages. What is it now? Must hunt soon. I hunger. I hunger.
妈的！
Spree.
What? I hunger. Death rages. You thought of that. I hunger. I hunger. I hunger. Agreed. You thought of that. That was my plan. That was my plan.
Unstoppable.
Agreed. That was my plan.
Double kill.
Must hunt soon. What is it now? I must hunt soon. Very well.
Killing spree. Triple kill.
Agreed. Very well. Thought of that. That was my plan.